I want you to move from overwhelmed by information to confident in what really matters. I want to help you move from being unsure towards direction and purpose in your healthcare. I want to introduce you to health experts. I want to let you in on tough conversations on women's health. I want to give you a place where you can lean in and learn how to take care of yourself. Let's transform your health. Let's get clear on your goals. This is Women's Health Unplugged. I'm your host, Dr. Jordan Robertson, naturopathic doctor. I'm a really great cook. I also hate recipes. And for different reasons. I love recipes when I'm making something. I hate the idea that recipes are supposed to help us or save us in our quest for better nutrition. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the 3 categories of foods that I believe need to be in your kitchen every week for you to have success in your nutrition long term. I personally have worked on my nutrition a lot, and in the last year or two, my nutrition is really circulated around my weightlifting career, we'll call it, my master's weightlifting career. And I definitely can fall into some ruts with my own personal nutrition when there is a component of weight management or weight on the scale that needs to be at a certain point at various points of the year. And I actually work with a nutritionist myself to help give me some ideas, to help me get some recipes, which we'll talk about where recipes should live in your plan. And so I'm going to talk about the things that I think are really helpful for patients. I'm not talking about the behavior or the execution of parts of your nutrition plan today. I think that's actually kind of a separate conversation, but these 3 categories of foods that I want to go through are going to help you meet those behavior targets that you need to do on a consistent basis for you to have positive change in your nutrition. So I always find it funny that when I work with I work with a nutritionist when my nutrition is really great, and when we're nitpicking my nutrition, it is like down to the minutia of hitting particular targets and how many days out of the week do I hit my fiber goals, etc., etc. I want to give you these overall themes of the things that I notice that when people do well in their nutrition, they're more successful in the long term. Nutrition is really about consistency and about pattern of behavior. And this is why behavior change is so hard, because when we get stressed, when we're tired, when we have circumstances that feel beyond our control, we all revert back to the nutrition patterns that are easy, are safe, are cultural, and maybe are in that sort of like that phase of life where you were being nurtured by someone else, right? Does anyone ever remember having like grilled cheese and tomato soup when they're not feeling well? Well, guess what I eat when I'm not feeling well? Like grilled cheese and tomato soup. And so to change when your environment actually dictates a lot of those behavior patterns is really tough. And so when we're talking about helping people do better with their nutrition, we can't just talk about food, right? We can't just say like eat more cauliflower. We need to give more concepts. We need to teach more about a pattern of behavior so that you can create the infrastructure in your own kitchen to help you actually be able to meet your health goals. Because when shit hits the fan and it's Thursday morning and you're late for work and your kid needs their hair brushed and you shopped on Saturday and now you're not going to make it until the weekend, this is where things fall apart. And those are those moments that will make or break your ability to stay on your plan or to actually achieve your goals. And it's very common that we'll see people and patients be able to execute their plan for a particular window of time, and then the wheels fall off the bus for another particular time. And sometimes that's like weekday weekends. Sometimes that's when they have their kids, or when their partner or their ex-partner has their kids. Sometimes it's when they're traveling for work or not traveling for work, right? Like, you got to think about what your own particular pattern is, but these 3 categories of foods we're going to talk about hopefully will help you start to think differently about your nutrition and give you some framework to do your grocery shopping, so that you're actually giving yourself a bit of a gift with your nutrition. The way that I've marked out these 3 categories of foods is that I've called them aspirational foods, right? I've called them everyday foods. And then I've called the 3rd category, oh shit. And those are the foods that are going to save us during these harder times, harder weeks. So let's talk about every day first. I think that's the most appropriate place to start. Now, your kitchen, like 80% of what's in your kitchen on a week-to-week basis needs to be these everyday foods that are part of your cultural diet, that help you meet your nutrition needs, that are relatively simple to prepare, that are exciting enough, but there's a mundaneness to everyday food, right? Like, I think this is partly where we struggle, is that we want every meal to be like this epic chef-inspired creation, and yet none of us actually have time for that. So everyday foods are a bit mundane, and I'm like the queen of boring food, I will say, but 80% of what's in your fridge on a week-to-week basis needs to be a bit of a routine. And the reason I like this strategy for people is that it makes grocery shopping simple. It makes you less clumsy in the kitchen, right? If you made 7 different breakfasts on 7 different days when you left the house at 7 a.m., you would be slow, right? And this, I think, is a lot of our excuse for why we don't make food in the morning, is because it's clumsy and awkward and we don't have the right Tupperware and it's slow. I want a good chunk of nutrition to be a little bit in the mundane so that you can actually pull it off. Because if we go from exotic to food court, right? Because we can do the crazy one exotic lunch once and then your food court the other 4 days, you'll never actually meet your health goals. And so we need there to be this routine, and you need to be able to run on autopilot with parts of your nutrition. Now, for me, everyday foods look like yogurt, maybe like a cooked chicken. That's actually part of my every week shopping, and sometimes there'll be 2, but one cooked chicken, bagged salad or bagged greens, oats, rice, protein powder, my favorite fruits and vegetables, which would be like berries, apples, bananas. I like to, those are the main ones for me. I like clementines when they're like in a good season. Cucumber, having those veggies in the fridge like 100% of the time. Fruits and veggies in the fridge 100% of the time. They're part of every single shop. Cantaloupe. I forgot about the cantaloupe. And so you can imagine, like, as I'm going through the grocery store, it's like berries, bananas, apples, clementines, right? Cantaloupe. The same things are going in the cart all the time. And it also means that I can prepare them really quickly. It means I know what they're going in. It means that my kids will eat them on a regular basis because they're the ones that are just out on a regular basis. These are those everyday foods, and they are ones that help me meet my health goals week over week over week. There is not a week that we don't have mushrooms. I actually order them in my CSA box, or my community shared agriculture box. I get extra mushrooms because having these things in my diet every single week help me meet my health goals. I can prepare the same meals that they go in over and over and over again very easily. It's good, right? That's every day. I also have my meat delivered, and so my freezer always has 2 weeks worth of meat in it all the time. So I've left out what that protein looks like in my everyday meal conversation there. And part of that's because there is always chicken burgers. There is always ground turkey. There is always frozen shrimp. There is always smoked salmon in my fridge. 100% of the time, those foods are there. And it means that we can rotate between sort of these top 10, 15 meals that we like as a family. We know we're going to have fajitas once a week. We know we're going to have chicken burgers and roasted veggies once a week. It's very consistent every single week. So those are the foods that I would consider to be the everyday foods. They get picked up every week. They get put into some kind of rotation. And that does not mean we do not do like Taco Monday, Fish Sticks Tuesday. That's not how we plan our meals. It's just that those foods are always available. And so they rotate into various meals, but they just are there 100% of the time. When we talk to people about starting a new health journey, what do we talk about? Recipes. We say, here's a recipe. We say, we're going to start you on a nutrition plan, and here's my favorite 15 recipes. Recipes are for boredom. They're not for every day. And if you're relying on recipes to get you through the week, it's literally like having homework. Recipes are homework. Recipes are for aspiration. And so that other food group, I call the aspirational food group. They're the things that fall outside that routine and outside that norm that help us with variety, that help us feel excited, that help us feel connected to preparing food, that gives us maybe something unique, a unique flavor, a unique dish, a unique way of preparing something. Aspirational might look like getting different vegetables, right? Like getting that like cauliflower broccoli hybrid thing that I can never remember the name of. It might look like getting some outside of your culture veggies, right? Maybe you get the same ones all the time. Let's try something different, right? Or more exotic mushrooms. It's to use different fruit, right? You're getting tired of the apples. Let's grab some pears, right? These are aspirational foods. Maybe it's a unique cut of meat, right? You've always done something one way. Let's do it a different way. We've always done something on the barbecue. Let's try it in the Instant Pot. This is where new spices, where you can experiment with maybe alternative foods. Like I'd like to try and figure out how to make a fettuccine Alfredo without dairy. I'd like to figure out how to do a nut crust on my fish, right? This is aspirational. And the reason we need those foods partly is for variety, right? We hit that sort of boredom wall very easily in our pursuit of better nutrition. People can do the like roasted sweet potatoes and chicken and rice for like 6 days, but on day 7, they want to blow their brains out. We need aspirational foods in our life in order to have some longevity in what we're doing. This is actually where I've particularly spent some time in the last 6 months because my weightlifting used to be very sporadic. So I only had to cut weight maybe once a year. I could literally do the chicken, rice, sweet potato, whatever, right? The everyday foods. I could do it for like 12 weeks straight to make weight. But now that I'm competing 3, 4, 5 times per year, my nutrition needs to have more variety in it because I'm getting bored. And that's partly why I'm working with someone to support me, because I'm at that point where recipes are actually necessary. And I'm like, recipes are not my thing. I am not a nutritionist. I'm not interested in recipes. I'd like someone to give me recipes. But aspirational foods allows us to, it acknowledges essentially that we're omnivores, that we like variety, that we need dopamine in our food in order to build satiety. Yes, protein powder and chicken create satiety, but there is an aspect of satiety that comes from taste, flavor, texture, novelty. And we don't get that if we eat the same thing all the time. Even if it's kind of exciting on its own, the repetition of it alone is an issue for us. We are meant to eat a wide variety of food. Who knows why that's the case? I think we've tried to extrapolate why that's the case, that it helps us hit all of our nutrition needs, blah, blah, blah. But we need variety. That's kind of the short answer. And so aspirational foods, like when you start on a new nutrition plan, aspiration dominates someone's grocery list. I'm going to cook this lemongrass infused whatsoever, right? Like this is what we create. We create this like aspirational plan when aspirational foods really should be like 10% of your week. Maybe more, right? Maybe you need more than that, but it shouldn't be 80% because we need to be able to run on autopilot more often than not. If you don't have to run on autopilot and you can sit and peruse the internet to find a beautiful Thai-inspired fusion recipe for dinner every night, that's amazing. But most people can't. Most people cite time as being the greatest barrier for why they can't manage their nutrition. So aspiration needs to be a small percentage of your week. And that might look like you grab some new spices or a different cut of meat. That might mean that you sit down and look at one recipe every week and incorporate some novelty or something that's interesting so that you feel connected. That might mean that part of your novelty includes cooking for other people or cooking together as a family. But you can't do those pieces every single meal, right? Like you got like a minimum of 21 meals to pull off per week. So if we want a couple of them, like 2 of them to be aspirational, we're going to say maybe 2 or 3 of them are oh shit, and the rest of them need to be pretty autopilot or everyday meals. That's what we're talking about, right? If we really want to break it down. So that's what aspirational needs to look like. Except when we start something new, we literally make everything aspirational. We make every meal aspirational rather than saying, well, what do you already have for breakfast? Okay, twice a week, let's spice it up. Or what's a really fast and easy, healthy lunch that you can do 4 days a week? Amazing. What can we do that one extra day, right? Or you like chicken, you can eat chicken most of the time. How do we infuse some novelty by adding fish, right? But instead, we start with recipes. And I've always thought that that was such a mistake, that we start with aspirational, because that wears off really quickly. And the moment you hit a speed bump, like your kid has an early hockey practice, it's over, right? You can't be aspirational at that time of day. And the last category, which I am a huge fan of, is the oh shit category. And this is where we want some like more like non-perishable or frozen items in your pantry that actually are going to support your ability to stay consistent when time gets hard. So these look like things like eggs, canned tuna, right? I like some of those like frozen microwave egg bites, Tetra Pak soup, right? Frozen cauliflower rice, frozen berries, maybe ground meat, like frozen ground meat and frozen burgers, or like turkey burgers or chicken burgers, salmon burgers. I would put those in like the oh shit category. They can be made incredibly fast. They don't go bad. They're waiting there for you to have a hard day. They're waiting there for you to have miscalculated how many groceries you needed for the week. They are waiting there for you. So when you run out of time, when you don't have the bandwidth, when you feel like you're going to food court, it's there. That's what that oh shit category needs to be. And you need those foods to be living in your house at all times. So when I open my pantry, if I looked at my pantry right now, and actually I'm moving soon, so the oh shit category has been dwindled down because we had house showings, and it's also we're trying to like eat it up so we don't have to move cans of tuna because I just feel like that's so annoying. But the oh shit category, if I opened my cupboard right now, it would be cans of tuna. It would be a couple of boxes of like great macaroni and cheese, ones that you can like add meat to. My oh shit category looks like frozen microwavable egg bites that you can get in the frozen food aisle, a frozen pizza. It looks like Tetra Pak soup. Like we like the butternut squash one. So like butternut squash Tetra Pak soup. Sometimes I have tomato Tetra Pak soup, frozen berries, frozen bananas for smoothies, and ground beef and ground turkey, and then chicken burgers. And those things live in our pantry and house at all times. And so if push came to shove and I was really having a hard morning, I can take frozen egg bites and a smoothie made with protein powder, frozen berries, and frozen banana. I can take a Tetra Pak soup with a can of tuna. And then when I get home, I can throw a pizza in the oven and make a turkey burger to go beside it. Right? Like not perfect, but also fine. And that's an entire day, right? And there's not that many days where like the whole day is an oh shit day. There's lots of days where just one meal of those needs to be supported. You're too late to make, what you wanted for lunch. So you grab something from the oh shit category, or your kids ate more food than you expected and there was no leftovers. Please tell me that's happened in your house, because that happens in my house. And then the next day you have nothing to take for lunch and you're like, oh shit, I got nothing to take for lunch. You can take something from the oh shit category. And that's assuming that like your everyday foods are like not available or they take too much time to make. But you can see that by giving yourself that level of infrastructure, I'm expecting 2 or 3 meals to need to be grab and go. I'm expecting that 2 or 3 meals I'd like to be inspired, try something new, do something unique, make a recipe, and then the rest are going to be routine. And that doesn't count like going out for a meal once a week, right? And maybe your family does that more, maybe your family does that less, but that's not counting that meal, right? And so when we think about having those various columns and the foods that we're going to allow to live in those columns that we just kind of eat every week on routine, that's actually what's necessary for consistency. But very commonly, we start in aspiration and we make all the meals aspirational, and then we burn out and we can't do it anymore. Or we don't contingency plan for the oh shit, and by the time we get to Thursday, right, to get to the end of the week, you actually don't have what it takes to meet your nutrition goals. And it also means that we are kind of failing to recognize how important routine actually is. Right? Not every meal has to be brand new. Not every meal has to be fancy or epic or novel or a recipe. There's probably things that you're doing rinse and repeat every single week that are moving you towards your health goals. It's that other 20% of the time that we're not accounting for that well. We're not creating novelty, or at least I know I'm not, but maybe not creating novelty where we need it. And we're not giving the gift to ourselves of those oh shit moments and giving ourselves the grace and the gift of that food in the pantry so that we can just grab it on those days. So when you're grocery shopping this week, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the foods that you can do on routine that help you meet your goals. I want you to think about what you need to do next week to be aspirational so that you stay excited, that things feel novel, that you have some newness to your week. But then also think about the backup plan, those oh shit foods, whatever they are, right? I listed mine, but whatever they are, that could literally sit there for a month. And if you didn't need to touch it, fine. But if you did, you'd be very glad that they're there because they're giving you the gift to help you maintain the consistency that you need to actually meet your goals. See you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Women's Health Unplugged. My goal is to help you feel more confident about your health. Please remember that what we talked about today in the podcast does not constitute medical advice, nor was a doctor-patient relationship formed. If you have questions about your healthcare or about how today's topic pertains to you, please take it up with your family doctor, your specialist, or someone on your health team.